Shape of the Earth. Our Earth is spherical in shape, though it is not a perfect sphere. The radius at the equator is larger than at the poles. This shape of the Earth is called geoid. The spherical shape of the Earth is best represented by a globe, which is a three-dimensional model of the Earth. The axis is an imaginary line on which the Earth spins or rotates. The Earth rotates on its axis from west to east. The two end points of the axis are North Pole and South Pole. Look at the axis of this globe. The axis of the globe is tilted at an angle of 23.5 degrees to the vertical because the Earth is also actually tilted at this angle. Equator. Locate the other imaginary line running around the globe through its middle. This line called equator divides the Earth into two equal halves, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Latitudes and longitudes. Since it is difficult to locate a particular place on a sphere, a set of imaginary lines, both horizontal and vertical, have been drawn around the globe. The North Pole and the South Pole are used as reference points. The horizontal lines which run east to west are called lines of latitude or parallels. And the vertical lines which run north to south are called lines of longitudes or meridians. These lines cut each other at right angles to form a network or grid on the globes and maps. It divides the globe into many tiny sections. Parallels or latitudes. Lines of latitude are imaginary lines running horizontally between the two poles. They are also known as parallels since they are parallel to the equator and are at equal distance from each other. The distance between the latitudes always remains the same, that is 111 kilometers. The lines of latitude form full circles. As we move close to the poles, the circles keep getting smaller. In fact, the North Pole and South Pole are just points. Degrees of latitude are numbered from 0 degree to 90 degree north and south. 0 degree is the equator. There are 90 lines of latitude in the northern hemisphere and 90 in the southern hemisphere. The North Pole is marked as 90 degrees north and the South Pole as 90 degrees south. Important lines of latitude. There are three significant lines of latitude. The equator, located at 0 degrees, is the longest line of latitude on Earth, 24,901 miles. It is the exact center of the Earth. It is also called the Great Circle as it divides the Earth into two equal halves, the northern and southern hemisphere. Tropic of Cancer. It is located at 23.5 degrees north. It runs through Mexico, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, India and southern China. Tropic of Capricorn. It is located at 23.5 degrees south. It runs through Chile, southern Brazil, South Africa and Australia. Climates of the world. On the basis of latitudes, the climate of the world can be divided into three main zones. Torrid or the tropical zones. This zone falls between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Since this zone receives direct rays of the sun throughout the year, it is the hottest zone. It is hot and wet throughout the year. The region between the equator and the Tropic of Cancer is called North Torrid Zone, whereas the region between the equator and the Tropic of Capricorn is called the South Torrid Zone. Temperate zones. This zone falls below the torrid and the Arctic zone. The angle of sun's rays goes on decreasing towards poles. Thus, these regions have temperate or mild climate. They are neither too hot nor too cold. The region between the Arctic Circle and the Tropic of Cancer is known as North Temperate Zone. The region between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Antarctic Circle is known as South Temperate Zone. Frigid Zone. The regions between the Arctic Circle and the North Pole and between the Antarctic Circle and the South Pole are called frigid zones. In these regions, the sun does not rise much above the horizon. Rays of the sun are always slanting and provide less heat. Therefore, very cold regions. Meridians or longitudes. Meridians or longitudes are imaginary vertical lines running from North Pole to the South Pole. They indicate how far we are in the east or west of prime meridian. Meridians are semicircles. They are widest at the equator, about 69 miles or 111 kilometers apart, and the distance goes on decreasing towards the poles where all meridians meet. The total number of longitudes is 360. There are 180 longitudes to the east of the prime meridian and 180 longitudes to the west of the prime meridian. Thus, it is important to write E or W, east or west, after the longitude. The longitude, the 180 degree east and the 180 degree west is the same line. Important longitudes. The prime meridian is the 0 degree longitude, since it passes through Greenwich Royal Observatory at Greenwich near London. It is also called Greenwich Meridian. The 0 degree longitude and 180 degree longitude are opposite to each other, and they both together divide the Earth into two vertical halves, the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere. If you are facing the prime meridian, the Western Hemisphere is on the left and the Eastern Hemisphere is on the right. Coordinates and locating places. Latitudes and longitudes, along with the designation of east or west and north or south, are called coordinates. The coordinates help us in locating the exact position of a place on the surface of the Earth. The International Dateline 180 degree meridian. International Dateline runs along the 180 degree longitude. This meridian runs directly opposite to the prime meridian. The day and date change if we cross the International Dateline. If we cross the IDL from east to west, we gain a day, and the date will change to the next day. Similarly, if we cross the IDL from west to east, we lose a day. The IDL is not a straight line. It goes zigzag to avoid crossing a country or a group of islands so that the same date and day are maintained throughout the country and to avoid the confusion. Longitude and time. The Earth rotates from west to east and the sun rises in the east. All places to the east of a meridian will have sunrise earlier than the places in the west. The sun will rise later. When the sun rises in India, the places to the east of India have already seen their sunrise and it is still night time at the places in the west of India. Local time. When the sun is at the highest point in the sky at a particular meridian, that is the local time of that place. All places on a particular meridian have noon at the same time. Local time differs by 4 minutes for each longitude. Time zones. A time zone is a region that has a uniform standard time. Each time zone has a difference of 1 hour. Time changes by 1 hour forward and backward respectively for every 15 degrees east or west of the Greenwich meridian. Countries like USA, Canada and Russia have several time zones in the same country because the east-west extent of these countries is very vast. Greenwich Mean Time. The time along the prime meridian in Greenwich, England is known as Greenwich Mean Time or GMT. In India, we are 5.5 hours ahead of GMT, that is GMT plus 5:30. Whereas, the east coast of the United States is 5 hours behind GMT, that is GMT minus 5. Why we have a standard time in a country? If each meridian passes through a country follows its own local time, it will create a lot of confusion. To avoid this confusion, the countries have their own standard time. The middle longitude of a country is taken as standard meridian and the local time of that meridian is fixed as the standard time for the whole country. The standard meridian of India is 82.5 degrees east. This meridian passes through the city of Allahabad. The local time of this meridian is also called the Indian Standard Time.